Welcome to the Nevada Market Update. I'm your host, Jeff.
And I'm your host, Tim.
And today we've brought a lender in, a great lender from here in Vegas. So everybody, get ready! So everybody, welcome. First and foremost, I'd like to introduce John, a lender from Castle & Cooke. John, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, guys, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. I want to thank you guys for inviting me, and I want to thank you for listening to us. I've been in lending for about the last 7 years, so I got into lending right before we had the big crisis here in Nevada with the housing. So I've not known all of the quote-unquote easy type programs to do for people.
So you're used to dealing with the thick of things.
That's it. Full documentation has been the way of things since I got into the business. So I'm well versed in what documentation we need and what we can do for a buyer and giving them options so they can make the best choice for their overall financial picture.
Well, perfect. Well, let's start in with some questions then, John. What are the current interest rates? What are you seeing today? And where do you see the rates going in the future?
That's a great question. I get that about 15 times a day.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I believe we still are at a state where we have the best interest rates during the market, during the mortgage history. We have interest rates as low as 4.25% on FHA loans and VA loans. We have them as low as 4.5% on conventional loans. The big thing there is a lot of people have talked about interest rates are going to go up. Now, we all realize those are off the supported lows of the 3.5% that we had about a year and a half or 2 years ago.
Yeah, but come on. I mean, if you think about it, if you've got anything lower than 6%, we're still smoking. This market's doing great.
You know what's funny?
Right.
Going way back, when I bought my first house,
Right.
it was 9.5% interest rate.
I remember seeing in
9.5.
California, it was like 13%.
Hey, you felt good about it.
It was
Yeah, I
crazy.
did.
You felt good. You said,
Because
man,
it went-
I'm not at 10.
It
Right.
went under 10. That's
You know?
why I bought a home.
But that's what we see. And what we've seen is, certain people have heard about the way the rates used to be and they were low, and that's what people remember. So
Sure.
when you're saying, hey, we're at 4.5, I really wish we'd be closer to 4.
Yeah.
Well, I'm amazed that we're not closer to 6 on rates now because rates have to start going up. I mean, there's not enough of a natural market to keep them as low as they are.
Well, what's a major factor that contributes to rates going up or down? I mean, what do you see contributing to it today?
Okay. Today, the rates are driven by the bond market for mortgage-backed securities and what happens there. They are influenced by international markets. They're influenced by our domestic stock market as well. So it used to work that when money went out of stocks, money went into bonds. As the money went into bonds and increased the yields, the interest rates would go down. So it was, that was a good effect for us. That kind of stopped, I think, in about 2007, 2008, shortly after I got into the mortgage industry.
Right.
So the predictability kind of went out. We also have a government program where the government is supporting the buying of mortgage-backed securities, and that's falsely keeping these rates down.
Well, isn't that special?
So-
The government intervention.
Wasn't that a thing a while back where the government was actually going to back out of buying those, and then they came up with money to actually do this?
Well, if you remember back, I think it was about July last year, the government came out and said that, and we lost about 1% in interest rate
Just like that.
in a day or two.
Yeah.
Exactly. So when the government talks about pulling out of that, it puts stress on that market, and regular investors go out as well. They'd really like for regular investors to be buying these bonds and doing it, but it's not there at this point yet, as you see the government pull out because they should.
Well, think about it. As an investor, why would you buy something that is at 4.25% when you can take that money and put it somewhere else and get so much more? Why would you do it? So
Some other type of risk with a higher return.
Exactly. So
Right.
you got to have the government in there, somebody in there buying it that's willing to get that small return on their money.
Or back in
Exactly.
some respect, that's for sure. So how is it tied to the LIBOR rates? I mean, I hear that on TV all the time. It's directly tied to the LIBOR rates, the interest rates. How does that directly relate?
Well, again, it's tied to the LIBOR, it's tied to the stock market, but we don't always see, like years ago, and that's pre-2007, 2008, we would see the rates move If LIBOR moved, we'd see the rates moved. If the stock market moved one way, we'd see the rate movement. Now it's almost like they operate a little bit independently to see okay, we saw that move, now what's happening over here? Because the investors are still dictating and controlling what happens with it.
Absolutely.
So that's where, I'd love to see one thing that we could tie it to. And that way when I wake up in the morning, I could look at that one thing and know, hey, are we going to work or are we going back to bed? What's the best
Give
thing
me
to
the
do
magic
today?
crystal ball. So
And
that
if
they
some
can
leader
immediately-
in some other country sneezes or something, next thing you know, the rates are going berserk.
Oh,
and
You
it's
saw it a
great
couple
thing.
weeks ago with
Yeah.
the Chinese stuff.
Yeah.
Saying they might not be in as good a financial position as they
Yeah, and
act like.
Yeah.
And then rates started creeping up.
Yeah.
Over the last 2 weeks,
Just from
rates have
saying
gone up,
that.
and then they've come back down a little bit to where they are. On conventional last couple weeks, we were as high as 4.75, 4.875.
And now
Instead
it's
of being
actually
at
come down.
4.5, 4.625.
Okay.
So
Nice.
they, seem to move up a little bit and then settle. It almost seems like they're moving up a little bit, settling, and then starting to head in a direction, but we haven't seen anything to really drive it that it consistently marches.
Now, today, people coming in and buying a house, what are the most popular loan program you're seeing people use? For a first-time buyer, maybe somebody selling their house and buying another one. What are some of the loan programs you would recommend for somebody coming in to purchase a house?
The three biggest ones we look at depending upon a person's situation. If they are a veteran or in current active military, the VA program is a great loan program for them. It's a low down payment or no down payment loan. It doesn't have mortgage insurance, and mortgage insurance is typically required on loans that you have less than 20% down payment
That's
on.
such a
Yeah.
gift.
So,
And this is another respect on VAs that I really like that some veterans are not aware of, is they can use it more than once.
Exactly.
I've had veterans say, "Well, I've already used it in the past, so I can't use it now."
Right.
It's like, no. In fact, we've just done one together.
Yes.
Same thing.
And that's what we do. We make sure that they paid that previous loan off, their entitlement's been restored, and then we can go use a full entitlement again for them to go forward. If they're a disabled veteran, they can get exempt from the VA funding fee, which is another nice piece of it.
Also, on that part, I forgot on the taxes. They also can apply to get their taxes taken off. Correct? Something for their property taxes on a VA.
Right. Now, that's not done
That's a
through
different
us,
program,
but that's,
but
it's
just
a
something
different
else to keep in
program.
Another
mind
program.
But
once you're,
you know,
some
there's some better benefits there for veterans, and
Sure.
and my father was in the military. I have great compassion. I have a lot of friends who've been in the military. That hasn't been my life path, but I really have a lot of respect and think we definitely don't do enough for them.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay,
But the guy that's not in the military, what's a great program for them? I mean, I've heard that 5% loan programs are back.
yes,
Whereas,
we've seen great movement in the 5% down conventional loan.
okay,
Also, there's an FHA program where it's 3.5% down. So depending upon what your qualifying situation is, if you're getting gift of down payment, if you have enough money for your down payment, we'll look at those two programs a lot for first-time home buyers because with FHA, being that it's less than 20% down, again, you have that mortgage insurance factor.
sure.
FHA has pushed that up a little bit and done some changes with that in the past year and a half where that mortgage insurance used to go away after you were at 22% equity in the property, or you could petition to have it removed after 5 years if you had something that you could use to prove, maybe an appraisal or something that showed that you had enough equity.
yeah, I've heard it stays forever.
Now
the
it
term of the loan.
stays forever.
That's
Yeah.
brutal. So that 5% is really looking appealing to a
So
lot
the
of
only
people.
way out of the FHA at that point would be to refi down the road,
Yes.
but
Yeah,
rates could be
different-
up high. I mean,
Exactly.
you really don't know.
Yeah,
So
So
when
the-
you do that refi down the road, you're going to be looking at moving them to a conventional showing they have at least 20% equity.
Yeah.
So you have a couple different things. What are the qualifying standards going to be then?
Exactly.
What are rates going to be then? Because conventional loans are typically 1/4 to 3/8 of a point higher than FHA.
Yeah, because that could be
interest
5,
rates.
6, 7 years in the future. I mean, we don't know.
Well, here's another thing on FHA.
Uh-huh.
You've got the back to work program now. So you had a lot of people that had the short sales and the foreclosures that they went through. Now they've actually got the ability to jump back into an FHA
How-
program.
how
That's
much-
that's huge.
I've
Right.
heard that's a great program. How much time does it have to be after, say, the short sale, the foreclosure, the bankruptcy,
Even
whatever
bankruptcy,
their
right.
yeah, whatever their hardship was back then to be able to purchase now? They lost their job, they cut
Okay.
their hours, and now they're back.
Because that
That's
back
a-
to work changed that.
Yes, and that's an excellent question. Where typically with FHA you had a 3-year waiting period, now you can do it in as little as 1 year after the event.
Okay.
So once a discharge is done, 1 year out. Once the short sale is signed and recorded, 1 year out. And same thing with the foreclosure. The key and most challenging part of the program is making sure that we can document they had a 20% reduction or more in household income.
Okay.
So if I had a reduction in my job, but my wife didn't, and it looks like it impacted our family income, but it didn't meet a strict 20% rule
Right.
for a period of 6 months or more leading up to the short sale, the foreclosure, or the bankruptcy, we can't qualify for them for that program. But if they meet that, we take it, we go through and do a nice package, almost like putting together a legal brief for them. We'll go through a spreadsheet of here's what income was, here's what it was, here's what happened, here's what it dropped to, here's a percentage change,
And you-
here's the case and the story behind it.
You really have to get a lender that knows what they're talking about on this too, John, because as you and I have talked about in the past, I've dealt with some of the other lenders that have tried to do this program and then they haven't been able to do it correctly.
Right.
I've found that you've had more experience than most people so far for this particular loan. So
Plug for John.
yeah, there you go. I mean, that's one of the reasons why he's here is because he's so experienced with a lot of these type of loans.
But it is right. Between me and my team, my processor does training for processors at our company on when people have questions about putting those loans in because the underwriters are happy with the package that we put together. Since the beginning of this year, we've done as many loans as anybody in Las Vegas doing the Back to Work program.
Nice.
So
Now, down payment assistance. There's a lot of people out there that would like to purchase a house.
right.
That they just don't have the money. I mean, they just don't have the cash. Maybe they've lost their home a couple years ago.
Yeah.
They're working again, but they don't have the cash.
Right.
Is there any programs to help that person get into a home for that down payment?
Well, here in Nevada, specifically in Las Vegas, as well as other areas of the country, there are different community programs available. There's a couple factors. People can't make more than a certain amount of income.
Okay.
And that's not a hard set number because it depends on how many people are in your household that are wage earning age. So some of them are, okay, if you have somebody over 18 that is out working, we count that income in your overall household income. And that's 3 people per household, and then you hit an income grid and see if you qualify by being under the amount that you
So at least those programs are available.
But they are available. I'd suggest if you're here in Las Vegas, I'd love to sit down and go through it with you. If you're in another area of the country, get a good lender who has experience with it. And maybe, a lot of these websites have a company or two on there. Maybe talk to one or two and make sure that this is part of their core line of business.
Yes.
Because you can have a lot of people who say they do this program, or you end up with a lot of people who do the Back to Work program.
Gee, go figure.
And
Lenders are kind of like real estate agents. You can get a ton of them in there, and then 20% of them do 80% of the work.
Yeah.
It's kind of like one of those
That's
situations,
exactly
right?
what it's like.
Okay.
So as long as you have a good person who you feel comfortable working with, like I said, here in Las Vegas, I like to work with a lot of people and really get enjoyment out of letting people know, hey, you can go out and you're good to go.
Nice.
That's the most fun
that's
piece of the job, other than saying your loan is closed and recorded. Congratulations.
Now, we've seen in the past, and Tim and I have talked about this, where a lot of the cash investors that were in Vegas, they're gone. I mean, they've pulled out. There's a couple of them left that are buying right now. But there's still some great investment opportunities out there for people.
Exactly.
Is there any loans available for these investors?
There are. That's a great question because we've all heard about the different hedge funds here and buying all the properties and people buying down at auction and driving that up to near retail prices. So if people are looking for a good cash flow property, there's definitely loans available. We do 2 main types I like are just one is a straight finance, 20 or 25% down depending on how many other properties they have financed to be able to do an investor loan. And then also we do a product called delayed financing, which just means the person paid cash for the property, and then once it records into their name, we can go ahead and start a cash out refinance without waiting the 6 months or a year that a lot of places have.
That's
Nice.
huge.
And we
Okay.
can do that up to 10 finance properties. So, some places will do 3 or 4 loans for, you can't buy any more, you have 4 loans, and that's the rule. Well, we can go up to 10 finance properties.
That's huge.
with
10
that.
properties
So,
is huge.
Yeah, I have some good investors from different areas of the country that we've been working with on these programs and really, keeping them liquid. We're not going crazy leverage on it. We're looking at, 20, 25, 30% down. We're looking at experienced investors, people who have good reserves, because that's the biggest piece of
Well,
it.
that's good. It's not going back to 2004, 2005, where people
Yeah.
walked in and I'm an
Stated income
investor,
loans.
stated
Right,
income,
right.
and next thing you know, the market crashes and they all walked away. and they bought all these properties thinking they were going to make $1 million
The
on
reason
it.
why that thing's not around anymore.
Exactly, but at least those loans are available now. We know for investors because that had gone away for quite a while.
It
where
had gone
investors
away, and it
couldn't
was
get anything.
real difficult. So
Sure.
again, everything's full documentation. Some investors don't want to provide all that
let's-
documentation and tax returns, and
Let's
and
close out
every
with,
piece.
with one more question too. The overall current market and where do you feel the market's going? I mean, in through real estate with lending, where do you see the market going?
I think it would be nice to get, specifically talking about our home area of Las Vegas, it'd be nice to get some good stable jobs coming into the area, because I think that'll help foster some growth in the housing market. I've seen people are still buying houses.
Yes.
So, I know we go up and down with what we have inventory available, whether it's new home or current home or existing home. So I do see people still buying houses, and we are still doing loans. So being able to do loans for people to buy houses, that's good for all of our business, but it's good for people.
Well, with the cash investors having pulled out too, it's given the ability for the regular buyer
They
to
finally-
actually buy a house now.
Sure, they finally have that opportunity
Yeah,
where
the
they were getting
opportunity-
beat
it's a-
up the last few years.
Exactly. So it's a great opportunity. So loans are out there. They can
Yes.
get loans done. Investors can buy houses now. So I mean,
Right.
overall, it's a good market for the average Joe that wants to get into a house
And it
now.
hasn't gone
I
up so
agree.
crazy to where now we're going to be worried about another,
Yeah,
line on
right.
this sucker.
Exactly.
Most people are telling us that it's going to be anywhere between 3 to 5% still climbing the market. We're a nice, steady, solid market right now.
Okay,
Exactly.
but back in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, if someone told you get 5% a year appreciation on your house, I think you'd be pretty happy. It's just those years where it went
Right.
crazy that people got skewed going, hey, I need to make a
Yeah.
ton of money off my property.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't sell it. You ended up going down. Then you were upset that you were underwater on the house, where if you weren't selling that property and you were going to stay in it as your family, it didn't necessarily matter
Well,
that it was upside down.
The great thing is,
So-
most of these people aren't underwater anymore. That water's back out at the curb where it's supposed to
Right. So that's
So-
that's a
that
nice
analogy.
level.
Yeah.
I mean, you can hear people in town breathing. So
be. Exactly. Exactly.
We've heard bubbles before.
Yeah, exactly. All right, John.
That's
We really
great.
want to thank you
Hey.
for coming in.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
brother.
Thanks, guys.
And you know what? We want to thank you for watching our program today. I'm Jeff.
I'm Tim.
And you know what? Make it a great day.